Hello, everyone in the EDAP 690 class, the class that Mayor built, making sure our microphone is picking me up okay. All right. So last week, we dove headfirst into Mayor. I hope I was clear enough for you that because I know that Mayor can get a little technical. So we were looking at this, the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. Um, Basically, we went into an understanding that your um, ears and eyes can both interpret words. Pictures are basically eyes, obviously, and that we have this problem with the fact that our memory, sensory memory, is short-lived. And what happens is if we don't start making sense of what we're seeing and hearing right away, and then we have to have it then connect to prior knowledge, then nothing happens. But what's really funny is at that point of sensory memory input, if the things don't work, and this is where Mayer's principles come in, if we're not adhering to these ideas, then the rest of the chain is broken. That, my friends, is about as a simple an explanation as I can give to what Mayer is all about. Now, what are we doing tonight? We are going to look at those principles. I am not going to go into some heavy, long-winded PowerPoint explanation, because it's all right here, and I'll show you where it is. And it's in a good place. It is a good form that I think it's very, very readable, self-explanatory, if you will. What I want to do is I want to make sure you understand the lift, and this is the lift for the class, creating this voice thread. And then how do we get the voice thread from here over to our Wikispace page that we have created, our Wikispaces in PBWorks that we have created, and then taking that URL from where it has been created and putting it into our assignments. So let's do this. Let me literally walk you through these two, and I'll show you others. But these, if you read these two links I have here, this will explain everything to you so you can do the voice thread assignment. So let me go up here and click on this first link. And so what we get here on this website is a really good explanation of what Mayer is about. And then we start here. So we'll start with the coherence principle, that humans learn best when extraneous distracting material is not included. I have made allusions to this, and I keep using as my analogy PowerPoint, but by no means does this mean PowerPoints only, okay? This can be any kind of multimedia, pictures and words. It can be a YouTube video that people use in their classrooms. Oh, goodness gracious, there are good examples of how YouTube videos violate Mayer's principles. So don't think in terms of one set of an application. But when you think about all the PowerPoints you've had to sit through, where there's extraneous stuff put into the PowerPoint, I always use the example. Let me pull this up so I keep mentioning this, and I don't know if everyone is familiar with it. Here you go. So these are the little bean people things that you can put into a PowerPoint. And supposedly the whole idea is that they give emphasis or explanation to whatever the point is you're trying to make in the PowerPoint. What is the problem? Well, first of all, humans learn best when extraneous distracting material is not included. Can you say extraneous distracting material here? Okay. Same thing if you're trying to watch a video, a training video on YouTube, and there's background noises. It might be a video where someone's just sitting in front of a camera talking at you, but then behind them is not a color or a green screen that has just a simple background. It might be their office, it might be whatever, and you're sitting there looking at it going, what is that back there? Simple as that. Now, when we get to the actual assignment, I'm going to come back to this because this is so full of great stuff for you to use. Signaling principle. Humans learn best when they are shown exactly what to pay attention to on the screen. Now, this can be that you bold it. This can be that you put an arrow pointing to it that basically says, you know, this is important, but don't let signaling get mixed up with your coherence. Because if the thing you're using to signal with is a distraction, in other words, it doesn't really make sense with what you're doing, then it causes you to go, what is this? So the Mayer always talks about that highlighting important words and using animated arrows to point out significant. Another way you can do this is if you're doing a video, it's even easier on a video, because if you're doing a video, you can just bring up the word and say, this is the important idea behind what we're doing. Redundancy. Humans learn best with narration and graphics as opposed to narration, graphics, and text. Let it sink in. So the idea of this is, if you're going to use an audio narration voiceover, which is really easy to do, and when we get to the voice thread, I'll show you how to do it so you don't violate this principle. Use only graphics on screen. Don't use graphics and text if you're using an audio narration. If people need it, and it's always a good idea, run closed captioning for those who need to read something. That's fine. But for goodness sakes, don't put all of it on the screen at the same time. This is a violation of probably every PowerPoint you've had to sit through, where people are putting up information that has text that goes along with it, and then they proceed to talk at you. The whole point of this should be, the text should be extremely clear in what it is about related to the graphic. It could be a chart, could be a picture, so that you're not sitting there wondering, what the heck am I looking at here? Spatial contiguity. So you want to keep everything that's in your presentation, be it whatever, you want to have it close. You don't want to have things far apart on the screen. Now you see this a lot in YouTube videos, where you'll have the person who is the focus of the YouTube video, and then they might be talking about something, and then they use what's called a card in YouTube videos, where it'll appear in the upper right, upper left, or whatever. And you know, people will say, you know, if you want to see more, click on the thing up there. Well, the problem with that is you're focused on that person. You probably don't even notice the card or the little link that's up there. So you want to keep things. The thing about YouTube videos you can do is the link, the card, it comes in underneath the person who's talking and then fades away. Spatial contiguity. Temporal contiguity. Another example of this in YouTube videos is, well, what it's about is you don't want things when corresponding words and visuals are presented together instead of in any kind of order. There is no benefit to having that sort of ordering of things unless you adhere to the signaling principle. So you might have number one, and you would have whatever number one represents right there on the screen. And then either the text or the narration, or again, if it's a YouTube video, the person speaking. And then number three, you want them to always stay together. Don't do anything fancy. Don't do fly-ins. Don't do, any of that kind of stuff that you can do in PowerPoint. Keep it simple. Keep it together. Keep it together both in space and time. That's all temporal and spatial mean. Segmenting. This one, we call it in our business chunking. This is all about humans learn best when information is presented in segments, in chunks. Don't try to do it all in one shot. Don't try to do it all in one PowerPoint slide. How many of those have you sat through where there is so much up there on the slide in terms of text that your eyes cross and you finally give up? We used to use a book in this class that was the guidelines for creating PowerPoints. And there's a rule of 6 that has to do with PowerPoint creation. And that rule says you can only have 6 elements on any one given slide. So what's an element? Well, an element can be a graphic, an image, bullet points. They consider them, separate entities or separate things, and of course text. So if you have graphics on your screen, can't have more than 6, which would blow me away, unless it's 6 and then in the middle, or 5, and in the middle you might have a label that said, these are the things that you would have to study to pass the AP chemistry test, and then all around it would be the various parts of chemistry you'd have to know to pass that test. That's fine. If it's bullets, each bullet should be no more than 6 words long, and there should be no more than 6 bullets on a slide. So there you go. No more than 36 words to a slide if you're thinking in terms of bullets. Segmenting. Keep it close. Keep it short to the information that you're trying to present. Human beings learn more efficiently if they already know some of the basics. Now, stop and think about that one for a second. Pre-training principle. If you think about what we talked about in Mayer's model, so we see, we hear, we start putting them together to make sense of them, and then as we go into our longer term, we are looking for prior knowledge so we can start making the connections, because when we do that, then it goes into long-term memory. In other words, you learn it. So if you think about that for a second, what this would mean is you might have to have a slide or a part of the presentation that says, okay, last time we were together, we talked about this, and we need to know this, we need to know that. That's all. Modality. This is a good one. Listen to this carefully. Humans learn best from visuals and spoken words than from visuals and printed words. So the modality of this is very straightforward. If you start putting too much on the screen, then people get lost. I'll tell you who was the best at this. And maybe I'm giving him too much credit. So let's give the company the credit. Apple Computer. You ever watched an Apple Computer presentation? When they're rolling out their latest iPhone or their latest computers. First of all, they have a big giant screen, which is more due to the fact that it's in an auditorium. But they have very, very few words, and the words are there to inform you of what it is that you're looking at. And then you hear the person talking. And the person talking, and it's really a good example because lately they've been getting into these where the people come out and they show off a piece of software. It's a part of the OS. And it's like they're sliding off. They're sliding off a modality principle and falling off the table, because all of a sudden up on the screen is all of this stuff. And they can't explain everything on that screen to you. And they're not using any way to say zero in on or zoom in on a part of the screen. They're not even using, which is one of the things that I try to turn on when I'm doing a screencast. They don't even have the ability to have like an icon or a circle that would show this is what I'm talking about. In other words, you would be circling around whatever word or whatever object you might be talking about. Modality says very simply, we learn best from visuals and spoken words instead of just visuals and printed words. Now think about that for a second. If you're doing a presentation to a group of kids, keep the amount of words that you have this applies to chalkboards too, folks. If you have the amount of information you're presenting to kids and you have things on chalkboard, keep it to a minimum. Keep it to the important words. You fill in all the multimedia. Simple one. Humans learn best from words and pictures than just words alone. You know this, I know this now, especially in this day and age of the YouTube. My wife, who has become quite a DIYer, used to get mad at me because she would come to me and she would say, how do you, and I would say, YouTube it. Now, there are plenty of YouTube videos that I wouldn't waste my time on. But boy, once you find the ones, and they're usually done by people who are craftsmen or who are experts. I watch a young lady who is just enjoyable to watch and listen to, but I have to just walk away from where she begins because she's always talking about how she's the second sister of the sixth sister stuff and all this sort of thing. And she does, in other words, she spends too much time talking. And then she finally gets into what it is. And what it is how to use an Instant Pot. And I'm all ears because I got one for Christmas. So remember that we learn best. You can use this principle by being very thoughtful about the images you select. That's a really good point. Now we start getting into some that I get the feeling that originally there were only 9 principles. So I have a feeling that what happened is that Mayer started hearing from people saying, is this just about PowerPoint? And so he's tried to move it into a greater venue. So this one would definitely apply to a YouTube video. Or, think about Brain Pop. Brain Pop's a good one to talk about. We'll look at it in just a second. So the personalization principle says that humans learn best from a more informal conversational voice than an overly formal voice. As you can probably guess, I take that one to heart. I try to when I'm talking to you over these things, I try to keep it very conversational. This one's really interesting. This is really interesting. The voice principle states that humans learn best from a human voice than a computer voice. Well, duh. I mean, I don't know about you. I have echo devices all over my house. And my kids come home and they laugh hysterically. But I also have everything in my house automated to the point where, you just walk through the house, say, hey, Alexa, turn on the, I tell you, one time I used to have it set up so it was, you can have either the start word, the wake up word, and the echoes can either be Alexa or computer. Well, mine was computer. Yes, because I'm a nerd, and yes, because that's what Star Trek. But I switched because everybody was having too much fun yelling at me. So I can walk to the house and go, Alexa, turn on the upstairs lights. Alexa, do this. Alexa, do that. Alexa, do this. So, but I can't take listening to it for as long as, say, the weather report. Anything longer than the weather report, I can't listen to it. So we're not there yet. And the thing that's kind of scary, and this harkens back to PowerPoint more than anything else. You can have PowerPoint read your stuff. It's not you talking. It's a good picture down here. The image principle states that humans do not necessarily learn better from a talking head video. You better believe it. And, you know, again, how many YouTube videos could I go and pull up that we could look at where it's just a person talking to you? Worse, and you see this a lot, they'll have just a slide, or they'll just have a logo, or they'll just have a, you know, there are some videos that do a decent job of that. In other words, you're kind of, I watch a couple that have to do with hiking. And so they're basically, the cameras are, they're carrying the cameras on a stick, and they're walking through the woods, and they're talking about what they're seeing. They don't stay on them very long, though. They switch off and show you what's around. In other words, the scenery. But that video that's just someone talking at you, and Lord help you if it's something that's, you know, technical in nature, you will not remember it. Okay. Let us go back up here and let me fill you in a couple of things here, and then we'll go look at the assignment. You have right here, underneath where the basically defines the principles, you have some really good information that'll help you understand what the principle is about. And then down below that, it says how to use it. So this is your primary source material. Now I'm going to pop back out of here, and I'm going to go over to here. So this is MARE, and the whole dual channel, limited, active processing, cognitive load, all those things that we talked about last week. And then we get down to here. And here we go. So again, we've got some good source material down here for us to look at. Good stuff. So your source material for your assignment, you can be found in just these two links right here. Now, if you want more, you can go into here and watch this. This is a really good video. I'm not going to play it because I'm not set up in here to be able to capture the sound. So that's a really good video. Now, you know, when you start thinking about MARE and then you start watching these kinds of videos, you really start seeing stuff. I'm letting this run just a little bit so I can jump in here. So you hear and see words, and she's setting you up, right? And you can't hear what she's saying, but she's saying multimedia is defined as anything that contains words, images. Okay, we're doing a good job here. We're signaling. We did that already. We're chunking. What about that palette? Does everybody know that's a paint palette? Could she have picked a better picture of something that means images? Okay, I'm nitpicking, but you'd be surprised. Okay, this one down here is just essentially the short term, I call it the Cliff Notes version. See, that's all it is. You really want to focus on these two, and then I would start by watching these two videos, and then I'd go back and I would read all of this. It's very straightforward, very understandable. I'm going to do one more thing, and then we'll dive into the assignment. I wanted to show you this because I think it's a really good example of the kind of PowerPoint that MARE would have appreciated. And as you can see, the title of the presentation is Thirst. We have a glass of water. And then we have a definition. And then we have a question with a drop coming out. Now, go back and look at that. So right away, everything is focused on what it's about. Right away, it doesn't put a lot of words on the screen, and the words it does put on the screen are really important to what the whole thing is about. And then we go to here. So you got the setup, the signaling with the question mark, and then the did you know. And then it goes through and it makes the case for how water is important to all of us. Marvelous setup. Not a lot of words, great imagery. Isn't this great? This to me is one of the best examples that I can come up with that has to do with principles, Mayer's principles in a PowerPoint presentation that is used to teach with or to inform with. Okay? Yeah, that one. I probably shouldn't end on that one, but okay. I think that I think that's enough. Let me show you then how we're going to do the other. So we're going to use a tool called VoiceThread. Now you can get to VoiceThread either from here or it's in a link at the top of Module 2. And let me come down here and read to you. This right here is just a little blurb about what VoiceThreads are about. What we're going to do is we're going to create a VoiceThread entitled Your Name, Mayer's Principles. You're going to develop a VoiceThread that explores, expands, and explains all the Mayer's principles of multimedia. Boy, I can't talk. It is absolutely essential that you follow copyright law. Don't worry, you will. So use public source content or create your own. Title, tag, caption your images as appropriate, and take advantage of the comments feature to solicit student feedback. Your completed VoiceThread will be placed in a separate thread in the class discussion forum for this module. So let's look. Your Mayer's VoiceThread will contain all 12 principles that will contain the following. A title slide with your name on it. Steve Swan's Mayer's Principles. Define the 12 principles. Go through and put the principles in. There are 12. And define them in your words. Although there's a way around it, I'll show you in just a second. Example of 12 principles in your own words. Same thing, there's a way around it that I think you'll like. The case for each principle. Why is it important to learn from multimedia once again in your own words? In other words, why is a principle important to learning from multimedia? Your VoiceThread may contain PowerPoint or Google slides. It may contain videos, images, screen captures, hyperlinks. And then I get down here and we're going to do this. We'll do this together. You are going to create a separate page in your PBWorks wiki, titled with the name of your VoiceThread, Steve's Mayer's Principles, Steve Swan's Mayer's Principles. Embed your VoiceThread using the embed, it should be read using the embed code from VoiceThread. I'll fix that. Then you're going to copy the link of your Mayer's Principle page from your PBWorks wiki into the Blackboard assignment. Got it? So without further ado, if you go either to the left side of the screen up here, or if you go into here and into Mayer's Multimedia Principles, here it is right here. They do the same. Okay? It's empty. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up here. Well, first of all, you're going to sit and gather your stuff together. This can be a very visual media. Let me see something here. What I want to do is I want to show you I'm going to show you a different kind of voice thread, but it does such a great job of everything that we've just been talking about that I want you to take a look at it. And it shows how you can, if you don't want to have to go, well, I'm just going to have to do it because I don't see it here. And I thought it was, here it is. There it is, right here. Okay, take a look at this. So what she did here, and this is Kim DeBarro, what she did here, she's using the voice thread to help people understand something called knowledge building principles. So what she did is she went through and just found really compelling pictures that she put into her slides. Now, what she did is she then records her voice explaining it to you. Hello, can you say mayor? So then she explains, going through here, about what is knowledge building discourse, what is embedded and transformative assessment. Do you see what I'm saying? All she's doing is she's finding strong imagery that she's then putting into her wonderful voice thread. All right. So, having said that, let's go create one. So the first thing it asks you to do is it wants you to add medium. Now, here are all the things that you can put into a voice thread. You can have the pictures from your own computer. You can have media sources. And when it says that, one of the ones that people use all the time is the excuse me. People use stuff from their Google Drives, Khan Academy, and other voice threads. Okay, so those are some of the sources that you have available. You can put an URL in that will take you somewhere. So in other words, you can say, if you want to go and look at this, click here. And I don't know why this is covering that up, but it's simple. So I'm going to go to my computer. So what I've done ahead of time is I've gone out and I've started finding some imagery. Now, when I go to put it in for the first time, it's going to pop up and it's going to say, what's the name of your voice thread? So I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. You can't mess this up. You can't lose it. You can play around with playback options. In other words, if you want it to come on and start playing, here, right here, wait 4 seconds before it allows it to move forward. You can limit, people can comment on it. I'll show you that in just a second here. Or you can turn all that off. In other words, you can turn off microphones and webcams so people cannot comment on your voice thread if you don't want them to. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to my computer and I'll put another one in. So what I'm saying here is, let's see how that would look. So what is the coherence principle? So if I were to put that in, C-O-H-E-R-E-N-C, principle, and then I asked to see the images of it, you see what I'm saying? Now, I wouldn't use one of these, one of these word cloud things. I would find something that looks like what coherence principle means to you. Okay? And it's just that simple. Find stuff that makes sense to you. Now, we go back and we Look at what he says when he talks about it. People learn better when extraneous material is excluded rather than included. All right. What if I then went up here and put in the words extraneous material? Let's see what comes up. Ooh. Okay. But be careful. Don't get yourself caught up. You know, find something that works. But don't get caught up in putting in pictures that, you know, you're like, what? Okay, so now I'm going to go and add another picture from my computer. How many pictures am I going to have to find? Oops, I didn't like that one. The operation involves a media type or variant that is not supported. Okay, fine. How many am I going to have to find? Stop and think. Here's from that comic creation site that we found. Let me do one more here just so we can. I'm trying to remember, I think, if it's a YouTube video that it lets me put it in. Let's look and see real fast. Okay, so maybe I would do a search for signaling. Okay. I don't think we want to use cell signaling. Let me just grab one real fast. So I'll grab this one. Okay, let's see what happens. If I take this and I put it over here. Sorry.
How did the Hyundai become such an excellent car and earn so much success in the marketplace? Well, let's go back in time. 1986, the first.
You get what I'm doing here. So how many of these slides am I going to need? 12? Yep. I'm going to need one. That is the title slide. So now I'm up to 13. But what can I do? Well, let's look at that. So here I go. I'm going to take this first slide right here. And I'm going to come up here to where it says comment. So this is my first slide. And my comment here might be, and I'm going to click on this little plus sign right here. And as you can see, it lets me type in a comment below. It's as simple as that. So then when I go to my next slide, by the way, it will show you, and I'm not sure why I'm not being allowed to see it. But if it should be showing us that there are other choices here. So the one that Kim used to make hers was she basically just went in and she talked. She clicked on the microphone and then she talks. Okay. And YouTube is still processing. So here he is. He popped in again. I'm not sure why we can't record here. It probably has to do with the fact that I am sitting here recording with a microphone to, yes, that's what it is. I remember now. Collaborate Ultra in the background is a bully. It will not release the recording capability to another application. So let me review. When you click on this, you'll see a little microphone over here, and you'll see a little, if you want to record yourself, in other words, if you want to turn on your webcam and record yourself talking. So I've got these 12 slides in here. And if we go back and look, what is Steve asking us to do with these 12 slides? All I want you to do is define it, help me understand how you understand that it fits. And let me go back a page here so we can see that. The good people at Blackboard need to work on their breadcrumbs. So you're going to have a title slide with your name on it. You're going to define, so you'll have 13 slides. One is a title slide. The other 12 are one for each principle. And in that principle slide, you can record yourself, or you can type it. You can record yourself telling us this principle is a redundancy principle. And then you're going to define it. You may use the exact wording right out of Mayor. Now what I want you to do is to think. So give me an example. I gave you an example of the redundancy principle, that when you are showing pictures and words together, or when you are showing pictures and talking, remember that they should be related to each other. Okay? There shouldn't be extraneous stuff nudging in from the sides. And then the case. Why would it be important for us to, when we create content, that we follow this principle? Okay? I hope I'm making sense here. Also notice you can turn on closed captioning. That's kind of cool. Now, if I come back over here and I click on my little more menus or pancakes, hamburger buns, whatever you call them, what I can see now is I have the ability to share it. Okay? So if I want to do a basic share and I want to just make it a link, it's already set to be that. Make sure these two things are, actually, if you want to take out the ability for people to talk back at you, just check out a comment. If you want to be brave, I hope you'll try it, copy the embed code. Okay? Now, if I go over to PBWorks, log in, and if you'll forgive me, I'll just drop into here. Where's my sandbox? There it is. So I'm going to drop in, and you can see that I've got stuff in here where we have played around. I'm going to go to Pages. I'm going to add a new page, and I'm going to call it Steve Swan Voice Thread. Okay, I'm going to create the page. I'm going to go to that page by clicking on it. I'm going to make sure I turn on the edit button. This is my Mayor 12 Principles voice thread. And it's not my bad typing, kids. It's this keyboard. I've got to get a better keyboard than this. I'll fix that one. And see, it even left out the O in VoiceThread. Okay. Now, I've copied my embed code. I'm now going to insert it as an HTML JavaScript. I'm going to embed the code here, so I'm going to paste it in there. I'm going to make sure that I check this box that says allow JavaScript and other potentially unsafe code. Don't worry. And then I'm going to go next. And then it's going to say, oh, you need to do a plugin. Sure, I get it. I'm going to insert a plugin, and there it is. Now, you don't see it until you actually go to save it. And there's our VoiceThread. Easy peasy. The only thing that you'll have to do is you're going to have to do some reading. You're going to have to do some thinking and figure out, oh, look, it did. It put in the video. So you're going to have to take your time, read, think through it. Don't overthink it. That's what gets people in trouble all the time. They try to think that Mayor is doing something much more deeper than what he is. And I'm here to tell you, no, he's not. No, he's not. Keep it simple, but make it yours. That's what I really want to hear. I want to hear your thinking, except for the definitions. You're more than welcome you're allowed to use his definition straight up. So let's review. Last week we went through chapter 1. We talked about what Mayor is all about, and the reason for the 12 principles is he is using those to justify this model that he's come up with. In other words, what do people do that foul up this model? Are you starting to see it now? So when you think about words and pictures working together, if the words and pictures, if there's other things in the shot that causes you to go, what is that? Then this part, which is the short term, just kind of spritzes out. It kind of fritzes out, and you can't understand it. Signaling. If you use things to let people know what's getting ready to happen, or that it represents other stuff, then in this part of the organization part, it starts to make sense. Okay? So here's where they all are. And as I said, he gives you an awful lot. In other words, you can basically just go through here. As you can see, it gives you a really good straight up. Here are the examples. This is what it means. This is what it means for developing and using. Okay? I don't think this should be too onerous. I just want you to get it into your heads. I want you to be able to sit and look at a PowerPoint that you're being subjected to by somebody, and you can sit there and you can go, well, that's a violation of Mayor's redundancy principle right there. Oh my goodness, look at the modality principle being, okay? And then when you get ready to develop stuff, you'll know better, because Mayor, I hope, Mayor will have moved from that sort of organization, words and pictures, that it makes sense, that you start making organizational sense of it. And then looking back at your prior knowledge, it ends up in your long-term memory. So that when you are faced with looking at others' works and you're wondering why, especially presentations, especially PowerPoints, why it doesn't work, you'll understand why. It's not you. 9 times out of 10, it's not you. But I also think that this is very powerful stuff for this very visual world that we now inhabit, where everybody's got a YouTube channel and everybody and their brother wants to show you how to make something on YouTube. And all you got to do is just look at a few examples of those bad ones, and then Mayor, what we're learning here with Mayor, just makes sense. So this is the lift. What I'll do next week is I'll come back to this again. I've got more examples that I'll pull out and we'll take a look at them just so I can make sure you're getting the gist of this. And then frankly, the rest of the class is just fun. We start building things using other multimedia tools. I hope that you'll give this the attention, and then I hope that when we move off of this, you'll really start enjoying some of the stuff that we'll be using to create with. I'll go ahead and we'll take a look at Animoto next week. And we will show you how to do an Animoto because they're very, very easy to do. Here we are. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move into storytelling and story creation. Now, why are we doing this? Well, one of the most important things that we think of when we think of multimedia authoring is the telling of a story. Now, I don't mean like the Three Little Bears. I mean the stories that you want to tell to help your students understand content. There's a gentleman by the name of George Siemens, and George has a cognitive theory that he calls P2P, people to people. It's extremely popular in Scandinavian countries and Canada. And his whole premise is very simple. He says all of learning started with people sitting around campfires and explaining how to do things. And so he maintains that the stories are what we need to have to help people understand concepts, principles, definitions, vocabulary, historical events, so on and so on. And in that story capacity, then we can pass along really important information. Good stuff. I don't do George Siemens anymore because I think, to me, it's pretty straightforward. So this is why I want you to be thinking about all these tools that we'll be playing with from here on out. You'll be thinking about them with Mayor running through your head, and at the same time, think about the story that we can create using these tools. We'll do Animoto, and Animoto combines pictures, text, music, and now spoken word. Well, right away, when we get into this, what should you be doing? Modality principle ought to be front and center in your brain when you're looking at creating your creation in Animoto. Redundancy principle should be front and center when you start thinking about creating inside of Animoto. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to get you to think out. As we work our way through creating these things, using these various tools, I want you to have Mayor running in your background and what he would say. Signaling, segmenting. Really, things like temporal and spatial contiguity don't come into play too much when you're doing these kind of, I call them flat. Animoto is very flat. In other words, nothing really moves around. It's just hearing your voice or seeing text and hearing music. Ooh, music. We need to think about that, don't we? Does the music actually bring something to it? And we'll be looking at another list of principles that have to do with storytelling using multimedia. And as you can see, there's 5 of those. Everybody has lists. You ever think about that? So we're going to play with that. We are not going to use my code. I'll fix this. We're not going to use my code anymore because what I want you to do is to go ahead and create a free account. The only thing bad about the free account is the Animoto puts a watermark on it, but it's not that bad. It's not going to be really bad. But I tell you, this new version, and if you used my login, you get to the old version, which isn't anywhere near as nice as this new version. We can do some really interesting things with it. You could do some really interesting things with it. I'm looking at you, Mark, over in the planetarium. Then we're going to shift gears again, and this time we're going to go into digital storytelling, big time, and we're going to use 2 tools here that we can do visual storytelling with. Again, I don't have, and Beyond, unfortunately, is the new Go Animate, which was a wonderful educational tool. And Beyond got really kind of crazy and thought, well, we'll just turn all this over to the commercial space. So it's how you can create content that has a very polished look. Again, we'll be using a free account. And it lasts for, this one you're going to have to be careful about because it only lasts for, I think, 30 days. So you need to get it in so I can take a look at it. I think once you create something in it, it does stick around. I did give you an alternative called Zimmer Twins, and I'll show you what that looks like. Then we'll do audio stories, which is my, love. And then we'll finish up with Google Tour. So we'll take our time with these. I want to make sure you understand understand the tool, understand how it works, but most importantly, looking at it through the lens of Mayor. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if something doesn't work right for you, let me know, please. And I'm at 502-457-2937. As always, thank you for watching.